Why your English is better than you think. At the end of my last video, I made you a promise. I said I was going to explore why your English is certainly better than you think it is, and why the gap between your actual ability and how you perceive it is costing you professionally. Today, I'm going to make good on that promise. Because in over 6,000 hours of coaching, the pattern I see most consistently in professionals that I work with is not people whose English is weak. It is people who picture their English far more negative than it is in reality, and whose behaviour, what they do at work and professionally, is being shaped by a false picture of themselves. And that false picture has real consequences. It keeps people silent when they have something valuable to say. It makes people over-apologise, overthink, overqualify, and over-prepare. It stops people going for jobs that they are genuinely qualified to do. So today, I want to challenge that picture, directly with evidence. Stick with me, because some of what I tell you might genuinely surprise you. I'm Mike Fox, a professional English coach, a qualified careers counsellor, and a psychology graduate. I have over 6,000 hours of counselling professionals one-to-one. Let's get into it. Section 1, the reversed Dunning-Kruger effect. You may have heard of the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's quoted a lot. It's a well-known psychological finding. The idea that people with a limited knowledge in an area tend to overestimate what they really know and sound far more confident than they really should. The less you know what you don't know. But the Dunning-Kruger effect has a mirror that almost nobody talks about, and it's the one that's relevant for you. The same research found that skilled performers, people who actually know a great deal, tend to systematically underestimate their ability. And here's the remarkable part. This has been confirmed specifically for speaking in a second language. Research investigating the Dunning-Kruger effect in language learning found that lower performers overestimated their accuracy and higher performers showed the exact opposite. They underestimated their performance relative to external assessments. The better your English is, the more likely you are to feel that it's worse than it actually is. Why does this happen? Because as your English develops, your ability to detect the mistakes that you make grows even greater. Because as your English develops, your ability to detect what is going wrong grows quicker than your ability to detect what you're doing right. You become aware of every hesitation, every grammatical slip, and every moment you couldn't find the right word. What you don't notice, and what is genuinely invisible to you, is the vast amount of English that you're producing fluently, perfectly, without error, effectively, every single day. The mistakes are salient, the successes silent, and your self-assessment is built primarily on what is salient. Section 2, Language Imposter Syndrome. There's a name for what I'm describing, and researchers have started calling it Language Imposter Syndrome. You may be familiar with imposter syndrome generally, the internal experience of not feeling as competent as others perceive you to be, feeling like a fraud, despite objective evidence of your ability. Originally described in the 1970s to talk about women, it's now recognised as widespread across gender, culture and profession. In the context of language learning, research published in the journal Frontiers in Psychology found something really significant. The imposter phenomenon found in language learners is associated with a lower willingness to communicate, meaning people who experience it speak up less, contribute less, put themselves forward less. And here's the crucial finding. That effect is mediated not by actual competence, but by perceived competence. A separate study found that language imposters systematically underestimate their abilities compared to external assessment, teacher evaluations, test scores, objective measures. They consistently rate themselves lower than the evidence warrants. Does that sound familiar? Have you been told your English is good by a teacher, by a colleague, a friend, and you found yourself thinking, they're just being kind. They don't know what it's like inside my head when I'm searching for words. That is language imposter syndrome. And I want to be very clear with you. It is not a sign that your English is poor. It is a sign that you are aware, self-critical, and you're holding yourself to a higher standard. Those are qualities, not flaws. The problem is when they tip you over into a self-assessment that changes your behaviour. Section 3, the native speaker benchmark. Now I want to address something directly, because I think it's at the root of a lot of inaccurate self-assessment. When most students assess their own English, they do it against an imagined native speaker. They hear their own accent, they notice the non-standard construction, they compare it to some version of perfect, fluent native English, and they measure the gap. I want to offer you a different perspective on this. The English that is used in most international professional settings, in global companies, in international meetings, on video calls with colleagues in 6 different countries, is not the English of a native speaker. It is English as lingua franca, a diverse, internationally intelligible form of communication that no single native speaker owns. The research on English as lingua franca has been increasingly clear on this point. The goal should be international intelligibility, not native-like pronunciation. The emphasis on nativeness, in the words of one of the leading researchers in this area, is outdated and counterproductive. And I'm pleased to say we are moving further and further away from that ideal. And here's a finding that I find genuinely powerful. A 2023 study found that non-native English speakers are highly intelligible. In one study, transcription accuracy for non-native speakers ranged from 79% to 95%. The same research found that exposure to non-native accents actually reduces listening effort and improves social judgments of the speaker over time. The social penalties you are afraid of, the loss of credibility, the sense that your accent is getting in the way, are significantly smaller in reality than they feel from the inside. You are not being assessed by a native speaker standard, by the people who matter. You are being assessed on whether you communicate effectively. And if you're working as a professional in English, you already are. I want to give you 3 specific reasons why I think your self-assessment of your spoken English is probably wrong. Number 1. You're comparing your insides to everyone else's outsides. When you listen to yourself speak English, you're listening to everything. The searching for words, the internal panic, the grammar you're monitoring, and the anxiety underneath it all. When you watch a colleague speak English confidently, you only hear the output, the finished product, not the process behind it. That comparison is structurally unfair. Your experience of speaking English from inside will always feel more effortful and uncertain than anyone else's looks from the outside. Not because your English is worse, because you have more information about your own performance than anyone else does. Number 2, you remember the mistakes far more vividly than the successes. This is a well-established feature of human cognition, what psychologists call negativity bias. We are hardwired to attend to errors, threats, and failures far more readily than positive experiences. In a language context, the meeting where you couldn't find the words will stay with you for days. The conversations where you communicated fluently and your colleagues responded to, engaged with, and built upon your ideas, those feel unremarkable in the moment and quickly fade. Your mental archive of your English performance is almost definitely skewed towards the negative. The successes are underrepresented because they didn't feel like real events. Number 3, your standard is moving faster than your sense of progress. As your English develops, your picture of what good English looks like rises simultaneously. The things that used to feel like achievements now feel ordinary. The level that you once aspired to now feels like the floor, not the ceiling. The result is that as your English genuinely improves, your sense of how good it is stays the same, or even gets worse, because the goalposts have moved. You are a better speaker than you were 2 years ago, but you may feel exactly as uncertain because the things that used to be a challenge are now easy, and a new set of harder things have taken their place. This is not a sign that you're not making progress. It is a sign that you are in progress. Section 5, what the evidence says about you specifically. I want to say something directly to the people watching this video. If you're a professional working with English as a second language, if you have built a career, contributed in meetings, written emails, had difficult conversations, navigated complex situations in a language that is not your first, and sometimes not your second, you have already done something that the vast majority of people have not. The cognitive effort that took, sustained over years, is genuinely remarkable, even if it feels ordinary now, because you have been doing it long enough that it has become part of who you are. And I think you should take a moment to recognise how remarkable you really are. The research is consistent. The gap between self-assessed and externally assessed language ability is largest not amongst beginners, but amongst advanced speakers. The more capable you are, the more sharply you see your imperfections. and the less credit you tend to give yourself for everything you're doing right. The professionals I work with who feel most uncertain about their English are rarely the ones who need the most help. They are often among the most capable in the room, whose self-awareness has outpaced their self-compassion. So, your homework, if you choose to accept it, 2 things, small ones. First, collect external evidence, not internal evidence. For 1 week, notice how people actually respond to your English, not how you feel about it as you're speaking. Do they ask you to repeat yourself? Do they seem confused? Or do they engage, respond, and build on what you have said? In most cases, the external evidence will tell you something different to what you are thinking. Second, compare yourself to your past self, not an imagined standard. Think about where your English was 2 or 3 years ago. If you recorded yourself back then, listen to what your English sounded like back then. What could you not say that comes out easily now? What situations were terrifying then and simply run-of-the-mill now? That comparison, backward in time, against your own history is the only fair one, and the evidence it reveals is almost always more positive than the story you've been telling yourself. In my next video, I'm going to switch to something far more practical: how to prepare for a job interview in English. My complete framework, drawing upon my careers counselling background, and everything we've built in the series of videos so far. If that's relevant to you now, subscribe so not to miss out. And if today's video resonated with you, if you recognise in yourself what I have described, I offer a completely free 30-minute discovery call. No pressure, no obligation, just an honest conversation. And we will talk about where you are and what's holding you back. The link is in the description. I'm Mike Fox, and thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one.